Hello everyone, welcome to the first video on my new YouTube channel. I am Matt, or Matt the Witcher. Still not sure on the name, it might change, who knows, we'll see how it goes. But anyways, I am going to be counting down my top 5 favorite fantasy protagonists today. Okay, so number 5 on my list is going to be Dalinar from the Stormlight Archive. Now, usually there's this saying that people have where it's like, oh, a character who you relate to the most is going to be somebody around your age. But I find that Dalinar is the exception to these rules. So I have started reading the Stormlight Archives. I'm on Rhythm of War, pretty much near the end of it. Um, but I've been reading through it this year, and I finally got through the first 3 books, and I'm almost done with Rhythm of War. But anyway, so if you're like, oh, why is he not saying this about Dalinar and the end of Rhythm War? Well, it's because I haven't read it yet. But anyways, so I'd say the reason I love Dalinar the most is because at least he's at least the most out of the Stormlight Archives, which I know it's a contested issue. The characters everybody loves, Shallan and Kaladin, but I like him too. But to me, Dalinar spoke the most to me, or at least was the most intriguing, because I think he brought sort of almost authority to the novels, where like the other characters are very, they're young, so they kind of have that childish attitude still. But with Dalinar, obviously he's a soldier, and he's, the main, one of the main characters of the first book. Obviously an Oathbringer, we get to see him a little more, which is personally why I think why that's one of my favorite books in the series, at least so far. But anyways, I really love that in the first book, he's really contesting with with all the generals, and obviously he's having those flashbacks, and there's a lot of, religious questions with that, get brought up later in the book. But I really think that at least in the first book, you get to see a side, or a character that fantasy maybe shies away from because of the audience. I don't know, but I really enjoyed Dalinar. Well, I guess I still enjoy Dalinar. He's not dead yet, at least. I hope not, because I haven't read The Rhythm of War, so who knows. But anyways, assuming he's still alive, he's probably my favorite character because you get to see not only a person who doesn't exactly fit with the other characters, at least their age. We also get to see him sort of struggle with his religious, the religious aspects of everything that's going on in the books. Obviously he's pivotal to the plot, and you get to see him sort of, especially in Oathbringer, you get to see him, we get to see why he is the way he is. And it's pretty interesting because a lot of times people say that the characters that have, how do you say it, the characters that are very moral characters tend to be the least favorite because they think it's, one dimensional. But with Dalinar, I think it's interesting because we get to see why he is the way he is, why he believes so wholeheartedly in making a Lethkar. I think that's how you say that name. I suck at spelling, so yeah, that'll be something to keep an eye out for. But anyways, yeah, so that'll be my number 5. If I could say one last thing about him, I really like his relationship with his kids. I like stories that don't shy away from like really bad parents, I guess. I don't know. Some authors might think makes them unrelatable, or, not like the character, but not every father is perfect. So anyways, that's Dalinar's top 5. Okay, next up at number 4 is going to be Matt from the Wheel of Time. Now, if you would have told me after I had read, I'd probably say like the first 3 books of the Wheel of Time, that Matt was going to be on my top 5 protagonist list, or just any list of who I like, I wouldn't have believed you. Matt, to me, was honestly one of the most annoying characters I've ever read at the start. I think it was just, it felt like he was the bumbling idiot that a lot of the comic relief type characters fall into. And to me, it didn't really start until, later in the novels that he really started to take shape, and I actually started to like him instead of just honestly hating him. Obviously, I think the first thing that really popped up to me about Matt was his personality. I love Rand and Perrin. I don't know. Like I said, I suck at like saying names, so sorry. Anyways, yeah, his personality. Obviously, he's got a lot of the gambling tendencies, which at first was like kind of stupid and like, oh, look, the bumbling idiot likes gambling, but then you kind of realize it's like, oh, it plays into that whole luck thing that he has, which is one of my favorite things in a character is when they have like natural luck. I don't know, that always interested me. But as I continued reading, I really enjoyed the Matt chapters way more than I thought I was gonna enjoy them. But the further you read, he joins up with that the band of the Red Hand, I believe it's called, and that starts to really develop his character because I think he starts to feel like he has a place in the story, but not overwhelming. Because like Rand, his chapters are very plot heavy, obviously good in their own right, but sometimes you just need a little break from that and maybe have just a little bit more, I don't know, not relaxed, but just something different than the typical, oh, the world's ending or parents having marital problems or whatever he has. But anyways, yeah, I really enjoyed the band when he joined the band of the Red Hand, and obviously, in the final battle, he really takes shape and acts as like more of a military commander, which I think is a pretty good role for him, even though it's like completely different from where he began in the story, which is probably why I really like it. I also really just liked his relationships with Elaine specifically, and just most of the women. I don't know. He had a very like I don't know how you describe it. Just he didn't really suck up to the women, if that makes sense, and it was kind of refreshing because you know like parents are just awkward around women. And also his Matt's relationship with Tuon, I think that's how you say it. Yeah, I thought that was really pretty interesting. Not a great example of a relationship, but hey, I mean, it was fun to read. So yeah, that'll be Matt for number 4. Okay, so now we're up to number 3. And number 3 for me is, obviously, I was going to include, how can you not have a list like this without a character from Lord of the Rings? I was going to pick Sam, but I think I decided finally on Aragorn. So Aragorn's been very influential, not only in like my own writing, but also just in how I kind of view the world. And I think it's been said a lot recently, but he's kind of been appreciated now more with this whole like the discussion around masculinity. And honestly, there's not a better character to describe masculinity than Aragorn. I mean, come on. Now, obviously, the first time we see Aragorn, he's known as Strider and the Ranger. He's just some random ranger, and then as the story progresses, you get to really see his relationship with Sam grow as he, moves the hobbits to Rivendell. And I really do like those chapters in specific because you get to see, you know, you just get to see a hero in a sort of a different role, I guess. Instead of having his character be like immediately the chosen one or whatever, fighting battles, it's more of a slow progression and you kind of learn his backstory and everything like that. And then as the story progresses, we get to see, obviously he helps in the Battle of Helm's Deep, and we get to see him start to become the hero that we know that he can be, or that sounds cheesy. You get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. Anyways, Aragorn helps out at Helm's Deep, and then obviously goes to help get the ghosts, and then he goes to Minas Tirith and helps out with the battle there, which is obviously awesome. Such a Chad move, if I do say so myself. That was dumb. I might cut that out. Anyways, you know, I guess when we have when there's characters like this in novels, a lot of people shy away from it, especially now, but Aragorn still remains that beacon of like, oh, you can have, a lawful good character that's still actually interesting. I know, like, there's a lot of discussion because, like, I know George R. R. Martin says that he likes, the Ranger Strider better than Aragorn, which, I mean, I guess that makes sense. If you've read his novels, he doesn't really like, characters that are decent people. Well, he likes decent characters, just, not letting them live very long. Sorry, Ned. Anyways, Aragorn is going to be at my number three spot. Okay, now my number two spot. Yep, almost said three. My number two spot is going to go to Geralt. Surprise, surprise. I know it's such a big shocker, but yes, I am a huge Witcher fan, and the first experience I had with The Witcher was, sorry, the TV show. I know, I know, and I enjoyed the first season, like, you know enough. It still wasn't the greatest thing I've ever watched, but it got me interested in the games. So from there, I went to. I think I played, yeah, The Witcher 2 first. That was like the first game that I played, and I'll get to the books in a second. Stick with me. Anyways, from there, and I liked the second Witcher game, but really it was the third Witcher game, obviously, that really made me fall in love with the Witcher universe. And from there, I mean, I was like so starving for new Witcher content that I was like, okay, I have to go and read every single book, which worked pretty well because I was starting to get back into fantasy, and I never read the books, obviously. But anyways, as I started reading the books, I feel like I really just felt even more in love with this character than I already was in the Witcher 3 version. I guess depending on how you play, he's a little different in the games. My favorite thing about him, Geralt, has to be his personality. Obviously, we all know his very dry sense of humor, but he has a very, you know, bleak outlook on life, especially in the books. But you can see where he's coming from. His upbringing wasn't the best, and I think we get to see a personality that's not laid back, but also not completely, you know, he's not so he's not like a statue or anything, right? You get to see him, crack jokes, and he has a very dry sense of humor, and that's really kind of the main thing why I really love his character is, obviously I love the Witchers as a concept, but you know, as the books progress, you get to see a little bit more of his emotional side, and you get to see that sort of dichotomy between, at least in my opinion, you get the dichotomy of the Witchers who are supposed to be like evil, senseless monsters, but like look at the world that they live in. Humans can be just as bad as any monster or mutant you can see. And obviously, Geralt wouldn't be complete without his, the other characters around him. So, Ciri, Yennefer, even Triss. I know that's a hot button issue. I don't really care. I like Triss. Anyways, and also his relationship with Dandelion, and obviously my favorite is probably his relationship with, not Detlef. Who am I thinking about? Regis. There we go. Sorry, I just finished The Blood and Wine again for like the third time. By the way, still amazing. Anyways, his relationship with Regis is pretty. I think in the books it was pretty funny, especially considering it's a vampire. But anyways, I also just love his relationship with Ciri in specific. They have this very, father daughter relationship. And even though in the later books you don't get to see them interact as much, they still feel like the driving force behind the novels. Obviously, Ciri is, as a character, drives the plot forward, but you can really tell that their relationship, it really hits the right beats, in my opinion, and makes you actually want to figure out, oh, how is Geralt gonna, you know, rejoin with Ciri? And, obviously there's the ending of the books, Spoiler warning, by the way, where he gets impaled by the villager, I think it is. Yeah, it's been a while since I read them. But I think that's such a fitting end to his character. It's just like, he faces all these monsters and some random peasant with a pitchfork kills him. It's very Witcher, if that makes sense. But anyways, Geralt is at my top two. Okay, now the number one spot for my favorite fantasy protagonist of all time has to go to Fitz from the Farseer trilogy, but pretty much all three of the trilogies that he's in. And, how do I even begin to say how much I love Fitz? He is easily the greatest character I've ever experienced, not just in books, but any TV show or movie I've ever seen. Robin Hobb is easily the best character writer I think I've ever read so far. Her ability to, on to put it lightly, to torture characters, not only is it incredibly exciting to read, but also it's incredibly refreshing, for me at least, because it kind of opened my eyes to the fact that, like, characters don't need to die, or there doesn't need to be character deaths for a character to, go through certain things and feel very tortured. Because obviously, Fitz does experience a lot of death in his life, but what we mostly see is, especially in the first trilogy, a lot of his, his upbringing and his naivety, just his naive youth that he has. Obviously, he makes a lot of mistakes, especially in the first trilogy. And, we get to see him grow as a character, not only through his what he's good at, but also through his faults, mainly through his faults. And even though he makes the wrong choices sometimes, and especially in the second trilogy, we get to see him kind of realize what he lost, especially when it comes to like Molly and his relationship with her, and Burke. I think I'm saying that name right. Me and my brother always have a discussion about how to say Burke's name. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm probably not. But anyways, his relationship obviously is really amazing. And Fitz's relationship with most characters, I think, is really well done. Especially his relationship with Chade. Obviously, it develops over time, and they grow more close or more distant over time, and depending on what book it is. And it really does feel like a real relationship. I mean, most of his relationships do. Night Eyes is one of my favorite companions in any novel ever, and he really just hit the parts with Night Eyes in it are some of the best moments, at least in the, in the first books. Obviously, spoiler alert, he dies. But yeah, and obviously his relationship with the Fool, in the first trilogy, we don't really, I feel like we didn't get to see as much of their relationship, and then the further novels, the further you read in the series, you start to, the two really grow a bond, and typically characters that have like this magical bond to one another are kind of annoying in my opinion, but with the Fool, it feels like a natural progression of Fitz and his, their personalities really mesh well together. But obviously Fitz goes through a lot as a character, but I think that's really why he resonated with me so much, is because of how much mistakes he made. And not only that, it feels like throughout the books he really starts to learn, and his character feels very evolved. It's never one note. You can really tell that over time, especially how Robin Hobb writes his character, is he learns from his mistakes. And I know some people don't like Fitz because they say he makes dumb decisions, and I'm like, well, it's kind of how people are, aren't they? And seeing his relationship, obviously in the later novels, we get to see his relationship with B, his his daughter, which I thought was really sweet, and those parts were easily some of the best stuff I've ever read. And yeah, just him in general, his character just feels so vulnerable in a way that some writers may not, may sort of avoid or just not feel is necessary. And I really do feel like he's a fully fledged character. So anyway, that is my top 5 fantasy protagonists. This was my first video, so if it's a little rough, sorry, but I'm trying. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you want to. I plan on making more videos like this. I've been thinking about doing book reviews as well as more top 5 lists. And also, I have been also considering doing more video game related stuff as well, related to storytelling. So that might be further down the pipeline. So just keep an eye out. And anyways, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.